One of the best things to come out of the new focus on water in Civ 7 is that we can finally go boat shopping. But before we start kicking the hulls of various civilization ships, since I don't know much about anything nautical, I've asked our mutual friend Blackbeard to provide some notes about what's available and some things to look for. We all know that it's a good idea to shop for vehicles with a friend who can help provide some perspective, and in this case, a sword and a pistol in case we run into pushy salespeople. What I've asked him to do for me is to help rank these ships in terms of how useful they are likely to be with any of the civs they belong to. In other words, how important are these ships in the overall build of their civs? You wouldn't think there would be much to choose from in antiquity, but Blackbeard told me I was going to be surprised. First off, we have the Tao, Axum's sleek, stripped-down model. It has a movement of 3, combat strength of 25, ranged attack of 20, bombard strength of 15, but can only attack an adjacent tile. It has a visibility range of 2, which is standard for boats of its time. Honestly, it was an undervalued unit up until the 1.3.0 update and the arrival of Blackbeard and, well, pretty soon another aquatic leader. Now we have to reevaluate how useful it can be to a primarily economic civ. And here, Blackbeard tells us that the Tao's increased combat strength on coastal tiles makes it quite handy in terms of harassing an enemy's coastal sites and trading units. Axum's interest in gold is something that he shares himself, and he would certainly give the Tao a try to see if it could handle a more aggressive playstyle. Tonga's Kalia, meanwhile, has identical stats and is also able to ignore opponents' zones of control, in addition to having increased coastal combat strength and plus 5 combat strength versus districts. So, it would appear to have an advantage over the Tao in terms of maneuvering behind enemy lines and overall power. Ironically, the Kalia is upstaged in this regard by the Tonga's own lightweight scout, the Tahina. When it's waterbound, it can go in deep water and across the globe, although it's unable to disembark onto distant lands. And it has no combat abilities whatsoever. In terms of overall usefulness to its civ, the Kalia is less impressive than the Tahina. But in practical terms, the two can work together, one in combat and the other in exploration. The Tahina can be Kalia's secret weapon. So if we take the two as a package deal, Blackbeard thinks the Tonga come out on top, but only if we're willing to let go of the gold advantage the Axum bring. Just when I thought we could put antiquity behind us, Blackbeard tugged at my arm and said, "We had some business with Carthage." It turns out that, yeah, their ships are pretty ordinary, but Carthage offers some modifications not currently available anywhere else. You can unlock increased movement and increased range for naval units. They also have a cashback program that means your naval unit will be cheaper, and they offer lower naval unit maintenance costs. In other words, you can save a lot of money with Carthage sales, and you can upgrade your vessel along the way. You might not get the meanest ships on the waves, but they'll be the most cost-effective, and that, Blackbeard insists, is not nothing. When we moved on to the exploration age vessels, we expected some flashier candidates, and we weren't disappointed. First up was the Chola's Kalam. Now, this ship, it's safe to say, offered the most bang for your buck, but I'll get to that. The Kalam offers 3 tiers of options. You can get the lower tier option with plus 3 movement, 30 strength, 35 range strength, a total range of 2, bombard of 30, and visibility of 2. You can upgrade that with shipbuilding so that your combat strength, range strength, and bombard are 35, 40, and 35 respectively. And then the third tier, unlocked with gunpowder, offers 40, 45, and 40 in that order. The main appeal of this ship is that it can fire twice if it has not moved this turn. Blackbeard says there's nothing like seeing a crew that efficient at serving up hellfire. Their civics unlock a plus 50% training speed, plus 1 movement, and plus 1 sight, along with a minus 2 gold maintenance. Look, up until now, many saw the Kalam as the main bright spot in the Chola's kit, and it just got brighter. In terms of its usefulness to its civ, the Kalam is probably the most central we've seen yet as a single unit. In fact, Blackbeard says that if he got a hold of just one Kalam, he would change up the Chola's game and own the oceans in a blink. But he's reticent to be too enthusiastic because his friends of the Republic of Pirates might overhear. They pretty much consider him to be the spokesman for their trim, sporty sloop. And you can see why once you get to the specs. The sloop has a lightning-fast movement of 5, strength of 30, ranged attack of only 5 with a range of 1, and bombard of only 5 and a sight of 2. Its second tier, unlocked by heraldry, gives 35 combat strength, 10 ranged attack, and 10 bombard, with the third tier unlocked by gunpowder giving 40, 15, and 15. He says if you want to snipe at your enemy, shoot and run and wear them down, then this is the ship for you. They can move after attacking, you see. That's the dodge, he says. They can cross civilizations' borders, plunder non-allied trade routes, and attack non-allies without going to war. When they defeat a unit, they get gold equal to 100% of its combat strength. There's a lot to love here, but the sloop does not have a lot of durability in the face of hard cannon fire. It's best to have more than one of them together. But the sloop is the Republic's bread and butter. Without sloops, there are no pirates. So they're even more central than the Kalam to the Chola. It's worth pointing out that the sloop is simply a civ-specific version of the privateer, a Tier 2 light naval unit that grants gold when defeating other units. But the standard privateer only gets 4 movement points, so good luck catching any sloops you were commissioned to hunt down. Many consider the Majapahit a hodgepodge civ that doesn't fully know what it wants to be. Part of the mix is their ship, the Setbang. There's nothing specifically lacking in this ship. Any pirate would be proud to own one, Blackbeard says. It has a movement of 3, a combat strength of 20, ranged of 35, a 2-tile range, bombard of 30 strength, and a visibility of 2. Just like the Kalam, you can upgrade over time to get 35, 40, and 35 combat ranged and bombard strengths, and then with Tier 3, 40, 45, and 40 respectively. It gets plus 5 strength versus naval units, and a civic gives it plus 5 strength against land units. So it's pretty non-denominational in terms of who or what it blows up. And it eventually gets an additional plus 5 bombard strength versus naval units. All in all, it has a little of everything offensively speaking. It's just that Blackbeard isn't sure how seriously the Majapahit want to use the vessel in their overall plans. That brings us to the modern age, and there are really only 2 serious contenders here. The Brits' heavy naval unit Revenge is unlocked with combustion and is a Tier 2 unit. It has 2 movement points, 55 strength, 60 ranged, a range of 2 tiles, bombard strength of 55, and visibility of 3 tiles. With mobilization, it bumps those strengths up to 60, 65, and 60. Through its siege ability, it can damage units even when they are behind fortifications. And it has the splash ability, as 25% of all inflicted damage is done to all units adjacent to the target area. Meanwhile, its splendid isolation civic gives it plus 3 combat strength when generating positive gold per turn. This interdependence of the military on the economic is good, but that's as far as it goes. Great Britain is an economic powerhouse, and aside from possibly helping the Civ expand its borders, revenge does not figure prominently enough in the Civ's plans. Like Blackbeard always says, a ship can't take you anywhere if you don't know where you want to go. The Mikasa of Meiji Japan is a slightly souped-up version of Revenge. It is a Tier 2 naval unit, unlocked by combustion, and it has 5 movement points, 50 strength, 55 range strength, a range of 2, 50 bombard, and 3 visibility. Tier 3 gives it 55, 60, and 55. The key difference is that it has 1 extra life. It respawns in the nearest settlement at 50% health. It has, as well, the siege ability, and the Supreme War Council Civic gives it 25% training speed. The Kontai Kessen Civic gives it +3 combat strength when on or adjacent to the coast. And Fukaku Koyehei, I blew that completely up, grants science based on 25% of its production cost. As far as integrating the ship into the overall Civ's plans, Meiji Japan is more successful than Great Britain. The interconnectedness of science and military production is quite strong, giving the Civ a clear sense of purpose, which includes the Mikasa. What Blackbeard and I both noticed is the relative absence of strong naval presences in the modern era. This is something that we hoped would change over time as more seafaring civs and leaders emerge. When I asked him to help me narrow things down still further, Blackbeard said, "You have to know what you're looking for. And if you want a civ that's going to support the ship you use, that's the main thing you need to know. If you want a pirating life and lots of gold, you can't go wrong with my boys and a good sloop. If you want to dominate the seas, you could certainly go with the Chola and their Kalam. In any case, the age of exploration is the place to be for your best naval battles. And look, if your ships are only there to give you occasional support and are not going to be central to your plans, at least take the time to know what they can do and in what conditions. Care and maintenance is what I say." And with that, I had as many answers as I was going to get from him, at least until we met again on the high seas. And that's all you're going to get from me for now. If you like what you've seen or heard, then drop a like or a subscribe down below. This has been Civilized Raccoon, and I'll see you next time.